I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Terence Blanchard, composer on the Apple documentary series They Call Me Magic. First of all, Terence, congrats on your, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, your first ever Emmy nomination for music composition for a documentary series or special. Congrats on that.
Thank you very much. It is my first. Thank you.
Like, I can't believe after all these years, all these awards that you've won and been nominated for, the Emmys are finally taking note. Of course, you don't do a terrible lot of TV, and that's probably the reason. When talk us through the morning of when you found out. I mean, were you expecting this? Was it a huge surprise? Talk me through that.
No, it was a huge surprise because I wasn't expecting it at all. You know, I, you never. I mean, everybody always says this, but you never do these projects or awards anyway. And I wasn't looking for it. But when my wife called me and told me about it, I was totally shocked. You know, but still appreciative. It's a great honor, just to be nominated. So I'm happy for that. That in itself is just an accomplishment.
Absolutely. It's always nice to get that pat on the back, and it's a really great category full of really beautiful work. I had the pleasure of listening to most of them. Let's just talk about the project. So They Call Me Magic. It offers a rare glimpse into this incredible story of Magic Johnson. So many of us we feel like we're so familiar with him, and yet this really sheds such a new light on him. He left such a mark in history and still is. What attracted you to composing the music that would underscore his really fascinating story?
Well, first of all, I mean, I've been a big fan of Magic for a number of years. I remember those years of watching him battle Bird, watching him battle all of these other guys, then the introduction of Michael Jordan into the NBA. I saw it all. So for me, there was a true fascination about getting the backstory, that learning about everything that was happening in his life, along with everything that I was watching at the time. It was just a fascinating thing to even just to ponder. So, when because I would have watched the documentary had I
Yeah.
or not, I mean, so when I got the call, I was extremely excited because I'm such a fan of Magic.
Yeah, I mean, it helps when you've got some emotional investment in something and then you get to embark on actually creating something for it. You're nominated for the score for the third episode, Irvin, in which Johnson receives that earth-shattering diagnosis that he's contracted HIV. I think a lot of us viewers were really, really interested in that aspect because it's not really a part of his life that I'm that familiar with. It's a very private part of his life. And it's an opportunity for you to explore something a bit more somber, melancholy in his very kind of uplifting journey. So did you ultimately want to submit this episode because of that light and shade that you're able to play with for this particular one?
Well, yeah, yeah, because it was that moment we all just remember, those of us who were there, those of us who were fans of Magic's, and you didn't even have to be a fan of Magic's. I mean, he was a personality that, his personality went well beyond the basketball court. So when the world got that news, man, we all looked at it as being a death sentence at the time, because we didn't know that much about the virus, and it was a how do I say it? I mean, it was just heartbreaking. That's the only thing I could think of. So, I kind of figured that a lot of people, had similar reaction to the news as I did, and to hear him talk about it in great detail, and it was just riveting. Going to the doctor, getting the news, having to tell his wife about all of this stuff, you know, you just can't imagine going through something like that. And then for him to go through that and to come out the way he's come out, with his relationship with his wife stronger than ever, for him to be healthy and doing a lot of other things, that makes the story even more powerful to me, because of his resilience, which is the thing that made him as successful as he's ever been, um, just made sense.
Yeah, Yeah, I know, like there's so much about Magic's story generally about how inspiring he is and even aspirational. Many people around the world would love to be just like Magic and grew up with him. And then to have this happen to him and then see how he came out of it in such a positive, life-affirming way, like you just can't get better than that. It's a really good choice, a beautiful episode. I wonder as well, given how much you've composed over the decades, when you get something like this, which really gives us a compelling insight into the man and not just the legend, but the actual human being, do you ever find that it emotionally resonates with you personally, and that then elevates the work that you're able to put out?
Oh, of course, of course. It's you look at Magic's life, being an African American in this country. We're close in age, and to see the things that he was facing, I knew I was facing those same things, growing up. Um, um, Becoming successful the way that he has, reaching a level of success and notoriety that he reached at such a young age, to be able to handle it the way that he's done, and to come out it, still and fully intact. You know, um, it's something that resonates with me a lot. Because it goes back to your upbringing, how you were raised.
Mm.
Your faith, everything. All of that plays a big role in it. And I grew up in the church just like he did. You know, it's like the old folks said, it's proof in the pudding. you know,
So true.
that those old values still hold true. And that really resonated with me and helped guide me in terms of writing the music, because I felt like there was a certain type of a similar approach to just growing up and trying to be successful in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that occurs to me is, before we do a bit of a deep dive in some of the beautiful cues that you wrote, it so happens, or often happens with a show like this, you have a preconceived notion of who the guy is because he's a cultural icon in many ways. So then how did working on this series change or shape your own personal perceptions of who he is?
I didn't change anything for me. If anything, it made my belief in him stronger. Because um, when he first got into the league, with with those of us who follow basketball, um, and are African American, we kind of knew, where he had come from, and you can see the excitement in his eyes as soon as he hit the court. The excitement of being there. But the thing that made him different was he didn't let it overtake him. The moment didn't. The moment wasn't too big for him. While he was excited, he was still determined to perform. And the
Yeah.
nature within him, right, really helped him to rise to the occasion. And that's the thing that I think that has always made Magic magic. The reason why they call him Magic, is because
Yeah.
on the surface, he seems like everybody else's brother in the neighborhood, until you put him on the court. And you put him on the court and you say, well, wait a minute, no, there's something a little different here, you know.
Yeah.
And that thing that's different is the thing that propelled his career. But the personality is the thing that has endeared him to everyone.
Yeah, what I learned is how humble he is and how grounded he is. Like so many elite athletes, and no disrespect to them, but they're not like that. They're actually larger than life. They feel like they're untouchable or whatever it may be. That he's not like that at all. It was so great to learn that. I kind of already had a feeling he was like that, but yeah, this show really cemented that in my mind, that he's so humble and grounded. He doesn't have to be, but that really, it made me respect him even more. Talking about some of the melodies, theme, and cues that you wrote for the series, I thought some of them were gorgeous. There's a few cues where you employ this pensive rhythmic melody that's overlaid with this gorgeous ambient string element, and that always gets me. There is something about the strings, particularly, that always makes me feel emotional. They give him a sense of gravitas the man in certain moments throughout the series. So what's behind your desire to go for that pensive rhythm with that overlay over the top, and so it feels like a very multi-layered score?
Well, because he was a multi-layered guy, number one. One of the things when I talked to the producers and the directors was one of the first things we talked about was trying to find that thing that was the constant in the score, whether it be rhythm, whether it be melodic, whatever it be, and to try to utilize that to symbolize the consistency of the consistency of Magic's determination, and the consistency of his personality, so those are the things that drove the concept behind putting those ideas together, and one of the things that I was trying to do was make sure I didn't like overdo it with it, but uh, make it malleable in such a way that it could evolve with the story.
Right. Yeah, so that rhythmic kind of forward propelling motion of those scores, yeah, it does give a sense of consistency, of drive, of determination. Yeah, it really does. It's very subtle, and it's not something that we're aware of when we're in the moment, but when you listen to it later, it certainly does that. It's beautifully done. Also, yeah.
Word subtle, because when I first did it, we were trying to find a sound, and I felt like the sound was too intrusive. So
Yeah.
shied away from that. But I'm glad you said the word subtle, because that's exactly what we wanted it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I hear this a lot from composers. Sometimes you get a moment where you get to really shine and it's all about the music. And on many occasions, you're there in the background, just kind of pulling those strings, making us feel something we don't even know because we're not as sophisticated perhaps. But it's, yeah, you do that a lot. And I guess, do you actually really enjoy those moments more? What's better for you, when you're really out in front or when you're in behind the scenes pulling the strings?
It's really about when it all comes together to tell a story, because there's sometimes when the music pulls out in front, it's meant to do that and it works beautifully. And then if it can pull back at a certain point and then become just the underpinning that can help go with the story. Because I don't want to look at it as pulling strings, because it's really about being with the interviewee. You know what I mean? It's like when
Yeah.
Matt is talking, it's like really about following his emotion, in the story. That's the most important thing, because it's his story, so
Yeah.
I don't want to sit down and try to manipulate, but the thing that I do want to do is enhance the emotional qualities of any scene, and there were moments, when Magic would talk about his mom, talk about his wife, talk about the learning about what was happening to him in terms of his health. All of those things are moments where there's no other choice you have but to be with him, because the interviews themselves are riveting.
Yeah, so true. Also, piano melodies are often so simple but effective in the way that they convey emotion, because they're pared back, they're organic, they feel real and like tangible. Is it fair to say that's a big reason for why you employ piano so often and so effectively, but particularly on the more inspirational parts of the series where we get to witness Magic's rise to fame?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where um, there was a certain palette of colors that I could use for the score. And within those palette of colors, you try to find the thing that's most poignant, and piano happened to be that for this score. And I think it works rather well in this score. The key to it is to not overdo it, but use it in the moments where it's absolutely necessary, and in those moments where it's not, don't overdo it and don't put it where it doesn't belong.
Yeah. And then I really appreciate how you don't shy away from percussion in the score. It's actually took me by a surprise. I don't know why. I mean, it kind of makes sense to me now, but the use of the soft drums to punctuate certain highlights in episode 3 in particular were really effective. What's behind your choices on going there and letting the drums maybe tell part of the story?
Well, I mean, first of all, it goes back to the first episode, where Magic talks about coming in with the boombox, and Kareem being the jazz lover and him being the guy who was listening to all the R&B. you know, that music has a lot of bottom heavy sound to the qualities, and it has a lot of bottom to the sound quality of what it is that they've done. So, you know, it just made sense to be able to do something similar to that in the score, not to try to recreate that or anything like that. But in terms of sonic range of the score, it was just another element that I had that at my disposal to use. So if it's there, you got to make sure you use it, because with his stories, the emotional content was going up and down. There were joyous moments, there were sad moments, and that percussive thing helped me to really shade those particular moments in both directions.
Right. Yeah, it absolutely does. I've always wondered this about you, Terence. I've obviously, you've been around for a very long time, and I kind of feel like I've almost grown up with your music. As a, you know, legendary jazz musician, composer, you've collaborated with some of the greats in your work. It begs the question, what draws you to composing for film and now television? What is it about that attracts you?
Well, I think it's that rare thing of collaborative efforts from everyone, you know, where you're doing something bigger than yourself, you know, and lending your talents to help tell stories in such a way that's unique to the story and hopefully engaging to a viewer. You know, those things intrigue me, you know, and they help me to grow, because without those things, I wouldn't be writing that music. There's no need for me to go down that road in my own musical world unless there's a reason for it. And then once there's a reason for it, you go down that road and then you grow and you see these other opportunities, and that helps fuel your own creative efforts. You know, and there's a give and take between both things, both
Yeah, that
worlds.
makes sense. It opens doors for you. It opens opportunities that you may not have taken. You know, you have 16 Grammy nominations, 5 wins, 2 Oscar nominations for Black Klansman, Da 5 Bloods. It reminded me of obviously your great collaboration with Spike Lee over the years, particularly 25th Hour. We mentioned offline. I still listen to that this very day. What do you most value about working with someone like, you know, the legendary Spike Lee?
Well, I mean, working with Spike has always been a great opportunity for me, because it's a great opportunity to grow. You know, he's a director with a definite cinematic vision, you know, and within that vision, you know, I kind of found a way to fit, you know, and he's helped me immensely, man, by challenging me, you know, not verbally, but just challenging me with his work. You know, I remember even having worked with him for a number of years. Once I got Black Klansman, I went, whoa, I mean, this dude goes to a whole nother level. And then once we finished that, and he told me he was going out to shoot another film, I was like, bro, take a break, man. But then he showed me the 5 Bloods. When I saw that one, I was just like totally blown away. You know, I thought it was just really amazing. So it's been a great working relationship, because it's like, I would imagine it was like being on a basketball team with Magic. You know, really, it's like he makes you elevate your game just by
Yeah.
not with words, by what he does.
And how could you not want to run towards that, you know, as you go through your career? Terence, mate, congratulations on some beautiful work. Congrats on the Emmy nomination. We hope to see you on the red carpet. Good luck on Emmy night.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, bro. Take care.